Hey everyone, Fix-It Scotty here, and what you're seeing here is the engine bay of my newly electric converted Volkswagen Bus. Now my intention wasn't to leave all that space open around the motor. So in this video, I'm going to create some skirting to go around the motor that will not only dress up the engine bay, but will also prevent wind and road debris from hitting the back hatch. And this will add a little bit of aerodynamics and safety, but also create new places to mount future components in my engine bay as well. So stay tuned to see how I do it. Okay, so here's the engine compartment. As you can see, there's quite a bit of space in here. There's a lot of void with nothing in it and that I want to be able to cover and fill here. So on this side, and especially on this side, which has this deeper cutout over here, I want to cover this up. What I'm thinking that I would do is maybe take some lightweight, like maybe 18 gauge square tube steel, maybe 1¾ or 1 inch, and run a bar this way on either side of the motor and attach it to a bracket on there and then down here on the back side of this valence piece. So what that would look like is if I take my level and hold it up just to the top side of that valence piece and level it down, and I don't have to be completely level, but about right there. I'll have to have a drop bracket on the other, that back side there, but that looks okay. And then what I thought I would do is take another piece and run a bracket this way in the middle here on either side. And so we would do the same thing on that side as well. And then run another brace between this one and this one. There's a little bit of gap between here, and I can run that there, and that will tie both sides together and add a lot of structure. And as far as like some areas around the outside, like in here, I'll probably just put a bracket, just weld or bolt on a small bracket underneath here so that, the aluminum piece or whatever I end up putting in as a topper will kind of contour around here, but that'll give a place for it to attach to underneath here. So I think that's going to be all the framing. Let me see what I can find in my stash of parts that I can maybe use as this framing. Well, as luck would have it, in my junk stash, I had an old IKEA desk frame that I had done some work on it originally with my welder when I first got it. And this was a desk frame, so what you would be seeing here is a laminated tabletop that bolted to this framing, and then I think down there, as you could see, those white pieces are like the legs. So I've got some nice round tube steel that I could use, but then all this nice square tube steel, and this is 1 inch square tube, but it's lightweight stuff. It's real thin. It's like 18 gauge, maybe less than 18 gauge. Yeah, probably 18 gauge square tube. So I think that'll work. It won't add a ton of weight, and I think that'll make good framing, and I've already got long enough sections of it that I can just cut it up and re-weld it together. So let's get started on that. Okay, just a quick update as to what I'm doing here. I'm not going to go into detail because what I'm doing is very custom to my car, but I'll just give you a couple tips on welding and fabricating stuff, like especially how to do brackets on tube steel. So I've got this, again, square tube steel. What I did was I drilled a couple holes in there, and I'll grind away the paint. And then what I'll do is I had 4 of these nice angle brackets. They're galvanized corner braces, but they're nice and thick steel. And so what I've been doing is making these brackets is just grinding off the galvanized coating all around, cutting them down in many instances. I'll cut off a bunch of this. But what I can do here is with those holes, I'll put the bracket in like this and have it, squared up and lifted up like that, right? So it's pointing downward. And what that allows me to do then is plug weld it onto the bottom of the square tube steel. Once I've got it plug weld, then what I can do is I've got this little wire. What I do is instead of using coat hanger, I use those steel bare wire that you could buy at the Home Depot or home improvement store for insulation hanging. So you could buy a box of this and it's already bare steel, nice wire. And what you use this for is in the situation where you've got these gaps right here and you want to like box this in with the bracket, you could just take the wire and put it up against here and start welding it into there, and that'll bridge those bigger gaps and allow you to, you know, bridge that without having to, you know, add a little piece of metal in there. And so what that looks like in the end, as you can see this piece, you can even see the plug welds right here. I haven't ground those completely off, but you see now that's all boxed in, and I've made the cut already on this end, and this end is the same thing. The bracket's just going the other way. Let me show you where I'm going to put these. Okay, so in the car here, these are the main frame rails that are going to go on either side. So as you can see, the longer one is going to go toward the back, the longer bracing, and the front bracing, I've got this pretty tight here, but it'll go basically like this, so that the bracket on the front that goes downward, and I'll be able to drill that in underneath the square tube steel. And then once I get this, you know, horizontally leveled out, I'll then drill a hole on that side and run maybe 1 or 2 screws in from there. So I'll either use, I'm not sure about fasteners yet, I'll either use some big stout like self-tapping screws or maybe some rib nuts, and I haven't decided yet. But I'm going to make 2 of these rails, 1 for either side, and then I'll make some cross braces and I'll bring you in when it's done. All right, little progress shot here. I think I'm pretty much done with the fabrication, and I think it's looking pretty good. I decided not to connect these 2 rails, so these are just going to be independent sides. That'll just make it a little bit easier, and I don't think it's needed because they're nice and sturdy. So what I've done is I did some M6 rib nuts in the back there, and those are bolted in with those. And then the rest, there is a little angle bracket on the other side of that, and it's also ledged there, and that is screwed in with a sheet metal screw. There's an angle bracket and a sheet metal screws on this side and on that side, and then one underneath there. So everything is secure really well. Notice I've also added rib nuts, and these are 1/4 inch to here, and then over there, and then one there, and then one there. Same thing on the other side, there, there, and there. And those are going to be to secure. What I've decided to do is do aluminum sheet. I'm going to just do a flat aluminum sheet and cut it out around there, and then that'll secure it in. Now notice though that it's going to be nice and secure there and there and there and there, but over in these corners, it's not going to have anything to sit on or screw down to. So I'm going to get a couple small angle brackets and put some 1/4 inch rib nuts in those, and put one there, and same thing there, and then over inside of there, so that we have ledging for that sheet all the way around. So the next step here is I'm going to remove these rails, just unscrew them and pull them out, sand them down, and do a primer and paint. And I'm going to do these as black, the Rust-Oleum black that I use everywhere, so that it matches the underside of the car. So these will all be blacked out. And then after that, I'll bring you back in and we'll start making templates for our aluminum sheet to go over it. Okay, I thought I'd bring you back in for another update here, and I think we are complete with the framing now. As you can see, I painted it flat black. It looks clean. Everything looks good. The welds look good. I also was finished off the little angle brackets that I needed on those corners. So there's one right there, and as you can see, I put a 1/4 inch rib nut in it and just kind of welded it to the side there. And then there's one over in that corner right there. And then on that side, there's another one right there. And then there's one right here in this back corner here. They're all kind of welded on. I just put a little paint on them just to touch it up. Doesn't look great, but it'll be hidden. And I made sure with a straight edge that everything's fairly flat. Everything is nice and flat across these brackets and across the main framing. It all looks good, and it's all nice and secure. So we are ready now for the actual skirting here. And let me show you what material we're going to use for that. I just picked this up last night, this 3x3 sheet of diamond plate. It's chrome finished aluminum. and it's thick aluminum. It's like a 1/16 of an inch thick, or 0.063, so it's the thicker aluminum. A 3x3 sheet goes for about over $80 at Home Depot, so it's quite expensive to buy a small quantity of this. But I was lucky to find a guy on Facebook Marketplace only 5 miles from my house that was selling them for 40 bucks. So considering I really haven't spent any money on this project so far, on the framing and all that stuff, 40 bucks for this isn't too bad. And so what we're going to do in order to cut this is create some templates. And so what we're going to use is just some construction paper that I had, and I'm just going to lay this around and basically cut this around. I want to get a nice cut in this, and there's a lot of shape, right? I mean, it's going to be flat against here, but it's got to go around and follow this shape and this drastic shape over here all the way around, and then it's going to come to about here, and then this side, of course, yeah, it has to follow this line all the way around. I want it to kind of hug that line. Notice I hung my corner braces a little bit shy of the actual side of this, so that this sheet will kind of sit flush to this decking right here. So I think it's going to look really good. This would be a great time to have one of those like scanner type tools where you can like digitize it and print out the shape, but I don't have that. So just going to do old school arts and crafts. Just cut it with scissors, tape it up. I'll bring it back in when I got the templates done. All right, bring it back in just to show you my cardboard template here. Obviously this side was a lot easier than this side just because of this stupid lip right here. But I think I got everything dialed in, and it kind of meets up right there in the middle. And it seems flat, and yeah, we'll go with that. Now I'm sure once I cut these out, I'm sure I'll have to do some more shaping. But yeah, let's go ahead and pull this up, and we'll go ahead and trace that out onto the aluminum sheet there. Now, if you've never cut aluminum before, I did a video where I cut aluminum plate for those blank out windows in my car. And for the most part, I just used a circular saw to do that. And this is set up with a fine tooth soft metal blade, and which means it's made to cut soft metals like brass and aluminum and copper. And so that's what you need. So the overall cuts I'll probably do with the circular saw, and then any additional cuts I'll use the jigsaw. Now I'm looking at this, it looks like I'll probably need to get a new blade and probably a metal blade for that. And that's what I'm going to use to cut this panel. So I'll bring you back in when I get those two sections cut out of the template. All right, well, here's a bunch of work I did off camera, and just wanted to bring you in to give you an update here. I got all of the aluminum basically cut with those tools that I showed you. The only thing I didn't show you is I did a lot of the shaping of the edges with a flap disc on a grinder, and that's basically it. Then I used the templates again, and that helped me mark out the hole locations, and I drilled all my holes for the screws to screw them down, and that basically finishes it. And I think it looks really good. Everything looks really matched up and really tight. I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to do with the screws. I've got pan head screws on most everything, but I'm probably going to go with these. Now what I did on this middle section here is, in my scrap bin I had a little piece of aluminum sheet, and I drilled a couple holes in it, put some 1/4 inch rib nuts in, and then I lined it up and bolted it in, and that's what makes it nice and lined up, that seam there. Otherwise one side would be a little higher than the other. And as you can see, I'm using stainless 1/4 inch hex bolts with a flat washer, and that's probably what I'll go with the rest of them rather than those pan head screws. But I'm pretty happy with that. Now the other thing I'll mention is, notice those two bolts right there. Well, those are actually, I think, M8 rib nuts underneath them, and a couple hex bolts there. and they're kind of in an odd location, but like I mentioned, I think I mentioned before in the intro, this skirting not only helps to keep air and road debris from getting into the engine compartment and maybe slapping up against my back deck lid here, but it also gives me the ability to mount other components. So that will be on a future video, and I'll show you that later. So thought I was going to call this done. This is what I envisioned this video being, is just these skirts. But now I'm realizing I see an opportunity here. Can you see it? Okay, I gave you a second. That ugliness right there. What if I templated a piece of this aluminum to cover that, and I can even use those same holes right there to mount an aluminum plate to that backing? I still have a fairly large section of that aluminum plate left over. So I think I'm gonna make a cardboard template and see if I can cover that bit of ugliness back there, and then we'll call it done. Okay, now we're done. Bling, bling. What do you guys think? I like it. Yeah, that back panel wasn't too bad. I created a simple template. It tucks behind those little ridges there, and then it screws in to those same two screws that I had that go through the rail. So that was pretty easy, and yeah, it wasn't too bad. Man, that really dresses it up, and I'm really digging that look. That's gonna look pretty killer when I take it to the car shows next year. So anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about it. And until the next video, I'll talk to you later.